book lovers, it is G-Swizz here, and I'm here today because 12 friends recommended me another 12 books to read, but this time in the year of 2023. So right now, as I'm filming this, it is the middle of January, and this is the first time I've filmed this year. And that's definitely only been because the room has been occupied by my mother-in-law, as I've mentioned previously. I have very much missed filming, but at the very same time, if I get really spaced out at some point, or if I just don't know how to talk, it's probably because I haven't talked to you guys this way in a very long time, but you guys wouldn't know that. I pre-filmed almost every video in January before 2023. I really don't know how I did it. But I'm here, and I hope that this video goes up in January 2023. I do want to talk about this challenge that I've set for myself and that some other booktubers, bookstagrammers, book talkers, book twitterers have also set for themselves. So, have you heard of the 12 books recommended by 12 friends to read within the year challenge? So I attempted to do this last year and I didn't fail hard. I just got 9 out of the 12 books read, and that mostly had to do with inventory purposes. Unfortunately, I didn't end up getting to Seafire because the edition of Seafire I wanted was out of print and I didn't want to get any other edition of it. I know, I was stupid. Then there was For the Wolf, which I also really wanted to read. But in this case, it was more like I wanted it in hardback and I never saw it in hardback, so I just didn't get it. But with Monster, which is what Camilo recommended me, which is the most ironic thing, because one of the books that I didn't get to happened to be something that my husband recommended. I saw it in stock only once and I did not take the opportunity to actually buy it. Volume 1, that is. Because everywhere I go, I see every other volume in stock, but volume 1 is just so on demand, and the one time I had the opportunity to purchase it was out of stock. Last year, it was a bit of a fail. So I encouraged anybody who recommended me books this year to make sure that there's constant inventory of the books that they are recommending and that there is an audio edition if it's not a graphic novel or a manga. And a big reason why I want to rely a bit more on audio this year is because of the chances that someone would recommend me a book that I would never usually want to pick up. Therefore, I would not usually really want to own a physical copy of and add it to my collection. I don't know whether I want to add books in my collection that I'm unsure of rereading anytime soon. Now here's the thing, majority of the people I asked to recommend me books are my work colleagues. This year, I specifically wanted to prioritize getting in touch with my work colleagues and asking them this one specific question. If you could recommend me any book, what would you recommend me? And I'm not gonna lie, even though this list is filled with recommendations that I don't necessarily feel the most comfortable reading, majority of them are intimidating for me. I'm looking forward to this TBR, but at the very same time, these are books that I would never usually pick up. There were 1 or 2 that I did deny, only because the author is problematic or the book is problematic itself, so I just decided that I did not want to put that in my system. And for those specific cases, I did ask that a different recommendation would be given. Thankfully, those who recommended me these books respected my decision there. I asked a few other friends as well, some book community members, and I also asked Camilo again. I asked my mother-in-law for a recommendation as well. She's given me one. Today, I'm gonna go through the books that have been put on my TBR by my friends, by my colleagues, by my family. This video is the starting point of the challenge for the year, and I will go through whether or not I am looking forward to them, whether I have expectations for them, or whether or not I am intimidated by them. So I guess without further ado, let's get straight into my 12 book challenge. So first of all, I asked Camilo because this year I didn't want to fail him. I asked him to kind of give me something that would be a little bit more realistic for me to get to, preferably something that was already on my TBR or on my shelf. So he recommended me Inuyasha Volume 1. And Inuyasha, funnily enough, is a series that I put on my last year's manga TBR, and I didn't end up getting to it. So I guess you can say better late than never here. I hear nothing but great things about Inuyasha, and every single time I mention Inuyasha, so many people get nostalgic, and it just comes to show how sheltered I was growing up, because I never heard of Inuyasha in my life until I'd say maybe the Anime Man brought it up on his channel once. I never grew up watching Inuyasha. I never grew up reading Inuyasha. I never really heard of Inuyasha. There are so many other animes and mangas I heard of at a young age, like One Piece and Bleach and like Naruto, but for some reason no one in my circles was talking talking about Inuyasha. I wasn't allowed to watch anime growing up, so that's probably another reason for it, but I just never heard of Inuyasha before only recently. And Camilo got really excited because he wanted to read Inuyasha for the very first time last year, so he started collecting the bind-ups, and I've been really happy for him, very much supportive. I love myself a good manga as well, and he just keeps on telling me that Inuyasha is so worth the read. I know that I need to get to it, I just haven't yet. I reckon that this is probably one of the easier ones on this list. It's not too intimidating compared to some of the other books that I have, so I am thankful to Camilo that he selected something that was already on my TBR. Moving on to the next book. This book was recommended by my friend Allison, and they recommended The Goblin Emperor. Have I heard about this book? No, not at all. I didn't realize that this was a very popular book until they recommended it to me, and then I went onto the Goodreads page, and so many people are hyping this book up, and I'm just thinking, where has this book been in my life? This seems like maybe a dense fantasy. It's just a new fantasy world. Am I intimidated? A little bit, but I'm only really intimidated because I've heard nothing about it. I'm actually quite excited for it because I have no expectations for this book whatsoever. So I'm just gonna trust Allison. I'm gonna trust her recommendation. I know that we have very similar reading tastes, so here I'm not necessarily too intimidated. However, I feel like they recommended this to me because it's probably one of those underrated books or series that not many people are talking about these days. It just seems like one of those books that are being overshadowed by the current fantasy hype of the newer releases. And the next book recommendation was given from my friend Beth, who seems to be speaking my love language because they put a romance novel on here, and that, my friends, is Beach Read by Emily Henry. This year, I hope to no longer be the person who is known for Emily Henry without actually reading them. I've talked about this previously on a video. So many people think that I've read Emily Henry previously, and they gush to me when they have read a new Emily Henry book saying, oh my god, it's so good. You're right, it's amazing. And I have to tell them, I have to break the news to them that I've actually never read Emily Henry before. So yeah, that's hilarious. So I wonder if Beth knew that. I am so happy that this has been put on my TBR for the year because it's technically a great breakaway from majority of this TBR. Some people keep on saying that Beach Read is better than some other books. Other readers say that You and Me on Vacation is better, or some other readers say that Book Lovers is superior. I really don't know. I want to form my own opinion this year. I have a little bit of a kickstart here. I've been recommended one, so I at least want to get to Beach Read in 2023. Moving on to the next recommendation, I have The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This is one of those books where I don't think I would have actually read it if I didn't get a personal recommendation for it. I hear that this book is absolutely phenomenal, except the thing is, I am really bad with historical fiction. Like, I'm just not motivated to pick historical fiction up whatsoever, unless of course there's some sort of fantastical or paranormal element. Examples being the Diviner series, the Infernal Devices, The Last Hours. Those historical fiction novels I'm 100% interested in. With The Nightingale, I had no motivation to read this whatsoever, but I've heard that this book is absolutely incredible. Am I intimidated? Absolutely. However, am I excited at the same time because of how much hype it's received? Yes, I am. I honestly feel like this challenge was made for recommendations like this because there's so many books that I would never usually pick up unless, of course, they were personally recommended to me, and I don't think that this book would have personally been recommended to me if I didn't choose to take this challenge on. So I am very much looking forward to reading this one. My colleague Tiana recommended it to me, and they did mention that if I don't like it, then we don't have to talk about it. So we will see how things go. The next book on this 12-book challenge is the book that I am the most intimidated by. My colleague Jeremy recommended me Jurassic Park, and the reason why I'm highly intimidated is because, okay, this is very controversial. I understand if people want to unsubscribe from me. This is just a random opinion I have, but it is my opinion nonetheless. I hate dinosaurs. Like, I cannot stand dinosaurs. I can read any other fiction piece with any other paranormal creature, but I cannot stand dinosaurs. However, technically dinosaurs aren't a paranormal creature. They did exist at one point. They did walk the earth at some point. I find dinosaurs not only terrifying and scary and unnecessary, they are ugly. I don't find them cute. And personally, I don't understand why so many people have a fascination with dinosaurs. I don't understand why people have an infatuation with them. They are creatures that I don't want to read about because they terrify me. They gross me out. I've never understood why dinosaurs make me feel this way, but at the very same time, I feel like this is a very normal reaction. In terms of Jurassic Park, the movies, I've refused to watch them my entire life. I refuse to watch them in the future. They're not necessarily my cup of tea whatsoever, and I never wanted to pick this book up. However, Jeremy likes this book. He's a fan of this book, and he's a fan of Jurassic Park. This is very intimidating, but I did deliberately ask him the question, if you could recommend me any book ever, what would it be? And instantly he said Jurassic Park. So, if anything, this is on me. As I did mention earlier on in this video, I did refuse a few recommendations due to their problematic nature. However, with this, I didn't see a reason to refuse this recommendation. I mean, technically, the only thing that will make me really want to refuse this book is the fact that I don't like dinosaurs. But I hope that I can get something out of this reading experience, and I'm still very thankful to Jeremy for giving me this recommendation. I don't want to let him down, and I really hope that I don't hate the book. It could go either way. This is definitely the most intimidating book on this TBR, but I did ask that specific question, therefore this is all on me, and I would not have picked up Jurassic Park otherwise. I'm sorry if that is a very controversial opinion for some of you. I know that some of you guys really love the franchise, but I can't stand dinosaurs. I don't think it has anything to do with the franchise itself, but dinosaurs make the franchise. And the idea of a theme park with actual dinosaurs, it honestly makes me wonder how stupid people could be in thinking that this is a good idea. But anyway, moving on to recommendation number 6. This one was actually recommended by my mother-in-law, Ileana, and she recommended me The Eyes of the Dragon by Stephen King. So my mother-in-law is a huge fan of Stephen King, and Stephen King is a very intimidating author for me because I don't read horror. I only technically read horror if it is paranormal or fantastical, or if it has some sort of element from some other books that I really do enjoy. I mean, once again, the Diviner series is a perfect example of that, and the Four Horsemen series is a perfect example of that. However, she recommended me The Eyes of the Dragon, and I'm actually very much excited for this book. And I think a big reason why I am excited about reading The Eyes of the Dragon is because Stephen King wrote this, I believe, for his children. He wrote this for his children because he realized that he didn't write books that were appropriate for them at the time, and so he wrote a fantasy novel dedicated to them. And that honestly kind of warms my heart, because that's also a very similar reason to why Ileana recommended this book to me in the first place. I mean, she has been staying in this room and she's been seeing my shelves. She can tell that I love fantasy. And so she decided that out of all the books from her favorite author, that she would recommend The Eyes of the Dragon to me specifically. That honestly warms my heart. This one I am specifically excited for because it was a personalized recommendation to me from my mother-in-law. The 7th book that was recommended to me on the 12 book challenge was The Lies of Loch Lamora. This was recommended to me by another work colleague, Bree, and I am intimidated by this one because this book series was meant to be a 7-book series, and Scott Lynch has taken a major hiatus when it comes to this world, and everyone is kind of desperately waiting for him to continue on and to write book 4. That's not happening anytime soon. However, I guess what sold me on The Lies of Loch Lamora initially when Bree was describing it to me was that even though it's a part of a 7-book series, every single book kind of has its own conclusion. It does set up for a future book in the series, or it does set up for how expansive everything is going to be and how everything is going to tie up in the end, but you can read it on its own and it will still be an excellent story. And I like that. I don't want to read a book that sets up an entire series without actually telling its own story. The next book that was recommended to me for this challenge was The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This is one of those other books where I honestly don't think I would have picked it up if someone did not recommend it to me. So initially I was given the choice between The Secret History and The Goldfinch, but I've personally heard that The Goldfinch has some problematic elements to it, so I decided I was more comfortable with choosing The Secret History. This all being said, I have no idea whether or not The Secret History has similar themes. I'm willing to try it out to see whether or not it will be a new favorite of mine, or whether or not it shocks me in the worst way possible. At the end of the day, my work colleague colleague Kiara recommended this book to me because it is one of their favorite books of all time. Pretty much the way that they talked about it made me a little bit more excited to read it, and I want to get a little bit more into dark academia. The Secret History is just one of those books that are like super iconic, so I mean, I was bound to read it at some point. I'm interested in it. I don't know what to expect from it. I just hear that every single one of the characters are completely unlikable, so I am going into The Secret History with that expectation. And the next book that was recommended to me for the 12 book challenge is Finnegan of the Rock by Melina Marchetta. Now this one's a little bit exciting because I heard about the series in my early days of booktube. I remember Reagan from Prue's Project was absolutely raving about Finnegan of the Rock and saying that it was pretty much one of their favorite fantasy books ever. However, from some people, I've heard that it's a very dense fantasy. But when Emily was talking about it, she was really excited about it, and she said that it was one of her favorite OG fantasies ever, and that it's one of those fantasy books that she would recommend to absolutely everyone. And I know at this stage that I'm a much more mature reader, and I am willing to get through the density of a novel. So I was intimidated by this book and by the series initially. However, now I think I'm a bit more excited to give it more of a go because I've received this recommendation years after this book and this series came out. It kind of feels exciting when you get recommended a book that was kind of one of those OG fantasies or just one of those OG books in a specific genre in general, and it still holds up to someone. So that's what's making me even more excited about reading Finnegan of the Rock. I'm a little bit intimidated, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm mostly intimidated because I was told that this fantasy book is dense and that it is part of a companion series, so it's not like I'm gonna be continuing on with like a full series following the same character. We will see how I go with this one. Then I reached out to Abby because I had realized how many dense and intimidating books I had been recommended. Books I would never usually pick up on my own. So I reached out to her and pretty much begged her to give me a romance novel. I was desperate for a romance novel, and I mean, she gave me 3 recommendations and I ended up concluding which one I wanted out of those 3 recommendations. The book I ended up choosing was The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. And funnily enough, The Dead Romantics is on its way to me because Fairy Loot did a special edition printing of The Dead Romantics, and I ordered it because that's what I do. I love ordering beautiful editions of books. So this book was already on its way to me anyway. I'm very much thankful for this recommendation. I'm not at all intimidated by it because I needed a romance, and I just know that I am going to somewhat enjoy this reading experience. I've been told mixed things about The Dead Romantics. I've heard some people say that it's absolutely incredible, and I've heard other people say that it's just okay or it's mid. I don't know where I'm going to fall on the spectrum here, but I'm very much looking forward to this one, and I reckon that this challenge is a piece of cake. But I have to admit, the book that I am most excited about on this 12 book challenge, after the first 10 recommendations, I went to Twitter because I needed to just fill out the board, and Beck over at Beckle Books recommended me Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chapeko. I don't know whether or not this video is going up before or after my 5-star predictions TBR, but funnily enough, I filmed my 5-star predictions video before I asked people for recommendations here. And the funny and most ironic thing about this whole thing is that I put Silver Under Nightfall on that list of 5-star predictions before Beck even knew. I am so looking forward to Silver Under Nightfall. This book I have been anticipating ever since Rin Chapeko teased that they were writing it. Rin Chapeko, if you guys don't know, is the author of the Bone Witch trilogy, which was a very iconic trilogy I read last year. I'm very much looking forward to reading it based on their writing style of the Bone Witch series, and I reckon that it's not going to disappoint me. I mean, I have very high expectations for this book as opposed to a majority of the books on this TBR, so I really hope that this isn't the one to disappoint me. But I'm so thankful to Beck for giving me this recommendation because I knew that they liked it as well, so the fact that I got a personal recommendation from Beck, that means so much. The last book on my 12 book challenge is Ashes of the Sun by Django Wexler. I believe I purchased the audiobook of this book on Audible for like $5. It was like a daily deal, but I never picked this book up. I never even really looked into this book. All I knew is that Django Wexler was a very popular author who had like a cult following, but I just didn't really know much about their fantasy. So I am hoping that this fantasy book, now that I've received a personal recommendation by Brianna on Twitter, that, fingers crossed, I will enjoy it. I've purchased a few books on Audible by Django Wexler, but I really need to start looking into some of the books that I purchase. Sometimes the deals are just too hard to resist. I mean, a $5 audiobook, you don't see that every day, you know? Ashes of the Sun I had purchased on a whim, but I didn't look into it. So I'm hoping that with this on the whim purchase, there will come a favorite, and that Ashes of the Sun will be a favorite. So that was my 12 book challenge. It is much more intimidating than last year, and that is definitely because I had asked the question to almost everyone who recommended these books to me. If you could recommend me any book, what would it be? All of this is definitely a challenge. I mean, like, yes, of course, there are definitely going to be some easy wins here, but I mean, time will tell whether or not I am able to complete this challenge. I don't want to pressure myself to complete it, but at the very same time, I think it's a little bit more exciting this year because I've asked people who are in my life every day to give me recommendations. The funny thing about this challenge is that, you know, if I don't like these books, then I will have to face my colleagues and tell them. I'm hoping that this isn't an epic fail. Rather, I hope that this just brings fellow readers together and that I can make great conversation with my colleagues and also with my friends and family who contributed to this list. Before I finish this video, I want to say thank you to everyone who contributed to this list and gave me a personalized recommendation. It honestly truly means a lot to me that you guys would contribute to this, and I really hope that I love the books that you recommended, but even if I don't, I'm very much thankful for this journey that I'm about to embark on, and I'm pretty sure I will be thankful for the journey along the way. So I guess that's gonna be it for this video today, book lovers. If you happen to stay to the end of the video, leave me the blue heart emoji. And if you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet already. Join the amazing community of book lovers. And also, I have social media. I'm at GSwizzleBooks on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also Goodreads. That's www.goodreads.com/GSwizzle. And finally, I'm at TikTok. I'm at GSwizzle on TikTok if you want to follow me there for some bookish content. I love you, book lovers, and I will see you later. Peace.
Started out with half and I flipped it in a double. Started out with half and I flipped it in a double.